live for the 26th season. The Professional Bowlers Tour. This afternoon, we've returned to the San Francisco Bay Area for the $150,000 AC-Delco Classic. Let's meet today's finalists. In fifth position, George Branham III. He won his first PBA title this past November. The senior member of today's field is 47-year-old Jimmy Certain, who's looking for his first individual title. In third place, the only left-hander in the finals, Mike Aulby, the 1985 Player of the Year. In 1983, Norm Duke became the youngest player to win a PBA title at the age of 18. He's looking for his second championship at age 22. And our tournament leader, 28-year-old Steve Wunderlich from St. Louis, Missouri. He won his first title last season at a doubles tournament. That's our field for the AC-Delco Classic. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, by automobile, we're about 45 minutes from San Francisco, California for the $150,000 AC-Delco Classic. It's the 6th year for this great championship. And I say hello to all of you from Union Square Lanes. My name is Chris Schenkel. The winner today will get $27,000. Speaking of winners, there's one I know in the audience. He's from Hamlin, West Virginia. He's the man made of the right stuff, General Chuck Yeager. Chuck, we're glad to have you back with us. There he is. Okay. We start the afternoon here on ABC. We get it off winging because following us will be ABC's Wide World of Sports, which will feature today the grueling, the testing, Ironman Triathlon World Championship. Right now, it's bowling live. Live with us as he is always from St. Louis, Missouri, starting his 13th year on our telecast, Nelson Burton Jr., Bo.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you very much.
What about the field?
Great field today, Chris, and I feel today's field represents the new breed on the Professional Bowlers Tour. The young lions are starting to take over the PBA Tour, representing or replacing some of the veterans. These players are experienced. They've spent some time on the tour. They're disciplined, they're well-trained, and they're ready to win. And the key to winning today is twofold. Number one, the players must keep the ball in play. This tournament, the AC-Delco Classic, historically is lost, not won. And by that I mean players usually beat themselves on this championship pair. What a player must do is keep the ball in the pocket, not get the tough spares to open the door for his opponent. And number two, he must be prepared to strike in the clutch. We're going to have some close matches today, and Chris, the winner, as we're ready to go, will be the player who can perform in the clutch.
Very much, Bo. We're ready, and so are the two bowlers. Taking his seat, Jimmy Certain, originally from Huntsville, Alabama. Now you're looking at George Branham III, 24-year-old from Arleta, California. 3-year PBA member, has one victory, the 1986 Brunswick Memorial World Open. His mom and dad are watching along with you. They are here present at the lanes. He is starting here in the finals after a grueling week in the number 5 position. Opens perfectly on the left lane. And Jimmy Certain, who qualified 4th with a week's average of 213. There you see his size, 5'9", 210. And he is the veteran in the field at 47 years of age. Oldest in the field, but some of these young bowlers, Bo, have as much experience. It's amazing, like Norm Duke.
Very true, Chris, but Certain could even go in that new breed category. I'll explain why.
All right, let's get a profile view of that last shot.
As you see the profile of Jimmy Certain, and I relate to him as some of the new breed out on the tour. He took off a number of years and has now resurrected his talent at the age of 47. And you see he has that low profile, that low knee bend, very similar to all 5 players we have in the championship round today. They're all disciplined and well-taught players.
Look at that, years of PBA member. 20, but not always bowling. Now living in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Coming up high, almost crossing over, leaving the 6th pin, which is nudged, but didn't go down.
Certain starts the ball to the left of the head pin, almost gets a good break as the 3-pin goes to the sideboard, knocks out the 10, and leaves a simple spare, the 6-pin.
Okay, 2 marks for Jimmy Certain, a strike and a spare. We're in our very first match of the AC-Delco Classic, Union Square Lanes, Union City, California. The Californian is George Branham III. Looking ready to pounce for that line. Double for George Branham.
George Branham, just an ideal style. 5-step delivery. He's crouched. Notice how his head is just riveted on that target. Shoulders square. Cups the ball in his hand and a tremendous wrist action. The result on that shot was perfect. He leads by 10, starting the game with 2 strikes in a row.
The 10 pin on the left lane, shooting in the 3rd frame of our very first match. And if you just joined us, to meet the winner of this game, the great Mike Aulby, the left-hander, the only one in the field, followed by Norm Duke of Fort Worth, and then Steve Wunderlich of St. Louis.
Branham across lane for the 10 pin to maintain a 9-pin lead.
As always, a standing room only crowd here at the Union Square Lanes.
Jimmy Certain was on the tour in the late 60s, and for a number of years, Chris, he flew with me when I owned an airplane, and I used to drop him off in Huntsville, Alabama, and was really a power player at that time, and since has changed his game to be what we call a tweener. He still has the power, but he keeps it under control, not as much hook. I really believe he's better now at the age of 47 than when he was in his 20s.
Living at 245, this man originally from Alabama who is making his 10th television appearance.
Certain coming in light, head pin to the sideboard leaves the 2, 4, and 5 pins. The key here is to get the ball directly between the 4 and 5s to avoid the chop, driving all 3 pins straight back.
Nicely done. Neither bowler wasting any time here in our first match. Progress through the 3rd, and shooting in the 4th frame will be Jimmy Certain. Nice sense of humor, Bo. He's delight to be around. Fun.
Jesse is one of the best-liked players out here on the PBA Tour. The championship pair this week, 33 and 34, of a 40-lane bowling center, Union Plaza here. It is wood lanes as opposed to the synthetics we had last week into the U.S. Open in Tacoma.
What he did last night in the 10th frame, he doubled to go past Ron Williams and get a spot on our telecast. We'll be back with more after this. The general sales manager of AC-Delco, Art Schwarzel, has brought a group of AC-Delco executives here to see another of their classic events. We do miss, however, the head man, Archie Long, who's back in Detroit, minding the store.
George Branham, 12-pin lead, 4th frame.
Beautiful. George had to go through quite a field to win the Memorial World Open in Chicago. Steve Wunderlich first, Ryan Schaefer, and then the top seed, Mark Roth. There you see the purse breakdown. $27,000, 14 for runner-up, $8,500, $7,000, and the loser of this first game you're watching now will get the $6,000 fifth place prize and increase it to 22. Giving it another look.
Disappointed, George Branham. Watch the ball as it enters the 1-3 pocket. Normally a ball will hit the 5, deflect into the 9, but watch, with the power of George's urethane bowling ball on that shot, he drives the 5-pin straight off the 8-pin, and he leaves a solid tap, one of the few real taps in professional bowling.
So with 3 strikes and 2 spares, continues to lead by 12, but Jimmy Certain now with a strike up has a chance to cut Branham's lead to 2 pins.
the experience of Certain. Let's see if he can jump on the misfortunes of George Branham III's and capitalize on that strike he has up in the fourth frame to cut the lead down to just 2 pins.
Well, you're probably what he's thinking. How did it stay up?
Well, Certain comes in light for the second consecutive time on the right-hand lane here. He drives the head pin to the sideboard, and it knocks out the 2, 4, and 5 pins. Now, as you see the ball rolling through there, watch the head pin. It goes to the left sideboard, comes back across, knocks out the 4 and 5, and almost knocks the 2 pin forward, which would have been a double. Now, what has happened right now, we have a delay. The machine or pin setter did not pick up the pin, and so it has to be replaced right on the same spot. And Certain is ready to go to convert the spare. He would still trail by 12 pins through 5 frames.
Human element, sooner or later, will always prevail with machinery, won't it? All right, even though he had to wait, with a great deal of confidence and experience, moves to the line, marks for the spare in the 5th.
Jimmy, experienced player, as we said, started in the tour in the mid-1960s. And I remember, Chris, when he first came out, he was one of the few power players in the 60s when we had lacquer lane surfaces as opposed to the urethane lane surfaces we had today. You didn't need all that power. So Certain was kind of a man ahead of his times. As you see his grip, the stretched fingertip grip where the fingers are inserted down to just the first knuckle. He buries his thumb. He's ready for the 6th frame.
Beautifully done. And Branham is up and ready. Branham with a spare up. Let's check Jimmy's release.
Powerful in the upper body, Jimmy Certain. He rolls that wrist down underneath the ball, lets it snap through the shot. He sends it wide. As we said, you do not want to beat yourself on this championship pair. So far, Certain has stayed in the match. Branham, although, leads by 12 pins, 6th frame.
And now it's a 4-pin for Branham.
Great concentration. Notice how Branham's eyes are just riveted on that target right around the 2nd arrow. He watches the ball well past the 2nd arrow. Head pin goes to the sideboard, drives the 2 to the sideboard, and does not quite take out the 4.
We're at the AC-Delco Classic. We started out our tour of 16 cities last week in Tacoma with a record-breaking purse of $500,000 and $100,000 to the winner, named Del Ballard of Richardson, Texas. He didn't bowl this week because he had a sore wrist, but he'll be back next week. But his roommate, Mike Edwards, did cash, made about $1,250.
George Branham, just like Jimmy Certain, the fingertip grip urethane bowling ball.
George Branham and Jimmy Certain in our first match, 2 of the field of 160 that started earlier in the week. We'll be back with more after this. The 3rd is meeting Jimmy Certain in our first match of the AC-Delco Classic in Union City, California, our second stop on the Professional Bowlers Tour telecast. Jimmy Certain trailing by 11. Shooting now in the 7th frame, can cut it to 1 if he can double right here on the right lane of our championship pair. Put that one out on the lane, didn't he?
You're right, Chris. A critical shot because Jimmy had really struggled on these right-hand lane, and at the opportune time, he closes the match down to just 1 pin. Watch the loft. He gets out over the foul line. He told me that's the key to making his ball roll true today. Lift the ball out about 3 feet over the foul line. That way it doesn't do any tricks in the early part of the lane and rolls very true in the back end. He surely made a great shot there, and now he has an opportunity for the first time today to take the lead. Trails by 1. 1 more strike would give him a 9-pin lead, 8th frame.
And is served up with the bucket on the left lane. 2, 4, 5, 8. That shot in the 8th frame.
The light hit. Jimmy leaves the 2, 4, 5, 7, 2, 4, 5, and 8 pins. He has come up with the first difficult shot of the day for any of the players. The key is to carry the back pin without chopping the 2 pin off the 5. Needs this spare to trail by just 5 pins.
Ooh! Speed to spare for Jimmy Certain on that shot. Well, continues to mark. And now with a, here you see him covering the bucket. Now Branham is up on the right lane. Strike working in the 7th. Beautiful shot, though at the very last moment it just bent into that pocket.
George has more power than any of the other 4 players in the championship round today, and he has controlled that power so well through 8 frames. The scoreboard really doesn't tell the whole story. George, leading by 15, can extend to 25, has bowled just a brilliant game so far, and he can really put the pressure on the veteran Jimmy Certain with another strike here in the 9th.
Pin on the left lane for Branham.
George Branham doesn't quite have the ball finish, as you see the 2nd pin on the right-hand part of your screen lay down in the channel. Tries to pop out the 10 pin, but not to be. George, if he didn't have bad luck this game, he'd have had no luck at all. He's bowled a great game so far.
Little body English of the line, oohs and ahs from the crowd because he nearly missed the 10 pin. This is how close he came. That'll bring about maturity early.
A bowling lane is 42 inches wide, and George used every bit of it. Now for Jimmy Certain. He came up in the 7th frame, adjusted to this right-hand lane, made a great shot to close the match down to just 5 pins. He had an errant shot in the 8th. He still has a chance to win the match. Trails by 14 pins. Jimmy, a possible 223 game. Right now, George Branham with strike spare in the 10th would have 217. It's up for grabs.
Two, 4, 5.
Certain's undoing so far has been the right-hand lane. He's been light on every shot except in the 3rd frame. And so he now trails with a spare by 17 pins. He still can win the match, but he must convert this spare.
Chops the 2 and 4 off the 5. First open frame of this first game now trails by 28.
Jimmy, with that extra speed, he hopes to avoid the chop, but not to be. The ball breaks just a pinch as the ball enters the 2-pin area, chops a 2-4 off the 5. He has dug himself a tremendous hole. The best he can finish is 199. He definitely has his back to the wall.
Big disappointment for Jimmy. Last frame, previous frame.
Well, Jimmy told me to tell the audience today and all his fans around the country that regardless of how he does today, that the fire is turned down a little bit, but the pilot light is still burning. That's what he said. So he'll be back regardless of whether he wins this match or not. He's really in trouble. He needs this strike to have any chance.
You'll hear some pinfall other than the 2 competing in the first game. That's Mike Aulby, a great left-hander who will meet the winner of our first match, practicing off to the right. Well, he struck out in the 10th last night to get into the television finals. So he pats Branham on the back. George is up. 199 for Certain.
Branham just has to keep the ball in the building, stay behind the foul line. He'll go on to meet Mike Aulby in the second match. There's a winner.
George Branham of Arleta, California, 23 years younger than Jimmy Certain, has won our first match, and now he will meet Mike Aulby, PBA national champion twice. We'll be back. On February 1st, 1969, just a few miles down the road from Union City, Johnny Gunther had a perfect afternoon in the San Jose Open. This strike capped a perfect game for Gunther, who went on to win 2 more matches in the championship that afternoon. Johnny, a member of the Bowling Hall of Fame, set a record that day for a total score in a television final. On that perfect afternoon, Johnny Gunther defeated Buzz Fazio, Don Johnson, Billy Hardwick, and in the championship game, Wayne Zahn. All 5 bowlers are now members of Bowling's Hall of Fame. George Branham, with 6 strikes, total score 217, has defeated Jimmy Certain in our first match, who shot a 199. Mike Aulby steps in as Branham's next opponent, 26-year-old from Indianapolis, a great champion, bowler of the year. George will be shooting first on the left lane. Dancing off the deck, strike on the left lane of this championship pair. Now here's Mike Aulby, who set a record pace in 1981, winning over $201,000. He started his victory skein in the AC-Delco Classic in 1985. Needless to say, he'd like to get going again after a $77,000 year in 1986. There you see the number of titles, 13. 9 years a PBA member. Leaving the 7-pin. Profile look at Mike Aulby.
The style that has dominated the tour in 1985, produced 77,000 in 1986. Mike Aulby, medium-high arm swing, very smooth delivery, low profile at the line. Very confident player, and that's one of the keys to professional bowling. Once you get that confidence, just stay relaxed out there, and that's the best way to get the best results. Aulby has done it so well in the last few years.
Spare for Mike Aulby.
Aulby much improved in his spare making. As you notice, he picked that 7-pin with a what we call a low revolution ball. He kills the ball, keeps it in play, and he learned his lesson in Paris in 1982, where he missed a 7-pin twice in the championship game to give the title away. Has much improved on all his facets of his game. Definitely one of the top players in the world today.
Strike in the second frame of our second game. We're the first of the usual Saturday 2-part afternoon. Yes, following us, ABC's Wide World of Sports, the Ironman Triathlon World Championship. Imagine, as you will feel the emotion of a 2.4-mile swimming event followed by a 112-mile bike race, and then finishing by running a full-fledged marathon. Ironman.
140 miles in a day. Here's Branham.
And Branham has doubled. Did that in the first game and then totaled only 6 strikes in his 217 victory over Jimmy Certain, who shot a 199. Certain pick up a check for $6,000.
The stoic George Branham just butchering these opponents so far. He has only made one slight mistake. That was a right hit in the first match against Jimmy Certain. He's been perfect through 2 frames against the very tough Aulby. Third frame.
Three in a row for Branham. Mike Aulby is up. He opened with a spare, marked to the strike, now shooting in the third. The young man that won 6 events in 1985. It's named PBA Sporting News Player of the Year. Earlier, he was Rookie of the Year. All right, leaving the 6 pin.
Aulby with just a little cutback on his speed in the previous shot. He left a solid 7 in the first frame on the left-hand lane, slowed up a little bit more just so he could carry the 7 and went high left the 6 pin. Very simple spare for a talented player like Mike Aulby as his wife Tammy Aulby looks on. Travels with Mike on the Professional Bowlers Tour.
And Mike's in-laws are here as well. Tammy's parents, Polly and John Canepa.
Mike, as we said, a very confident player, and not only has a great ability, but when his confidence is high, like it is right now, I asked him, he says, I feel so great right now, Bo, and he feels he can win at any time. So trailing by 20 pins, even though Branham looks almost unbeatable at this point, is not much of a hill for a great player like Aulby to climb. 4th frame.
Strike in the 4th for Mike Aulby. Aulby and Branham battling in our 2nd match. We'll return to California after this. George Branham III has jumped out to a 40-pin lead by virtue of strikes in the 4th and 5th. Here is his strike in the 5th frame as we had to bowl through because we're running behind. A lot of spares in the first match, rather slow play. Thus, you missed his last 2 strikes, and now he has 5 in a row. Now with a strike up, Mike Aulby, 5th frame.
Do not count Mike Aulby out. No matter what his opponent is doing, Aulby will stay and hang in the match. Branham looks just unbeatable in his first 15 frames against Certain. He bowled just a brilliant 217 game. He's off to a hot start with 5 strikes in a row this match. But he's got a tiger by the tail. Once you are a player that no longer doubts his ability, as Mike Aulby is, you become a great player. And with that in his mind, he will never give up. The lead of Branham's can be cut to just 20 pins with a 3rd strike in a row here. 6th frame.
So that's 3 in a row for Mike. But for the man getting up now, George Branham, he has 5 in a row. He'll be shooting in the 6th frame.
What a disciplined shot by Aulby under the pressure. Drives the head pin to the sideboard, wipes out the 3, 5, 6, and 9. Boom. He has put the pressure back on Branham. Branham 5 in a row. Aulby has 3 in a row. Just 20 pins difference through 5 frames.
So now with 6 more, George Branham, if he can do that, will win $100,000 from True Value Hardware. His fiancée looks on here in California, Patty Cummings. George's parents here watching as well.
George Branham red hot.
String ending at 6, leaving a 10 pin, much appreciated by the fans here. A bowler named Dave Arnold bowled 2 300 games in the same day, Nelson, during this competition.
Solid 10 pin, as you alluded to, Chris. Branham has kept the ball in the pocket. Arnold bowled 2 perfect games yesterday, and the 3rd 300 in this tournament was bowled by Staybrook in the early going.
All right. 6 strikes and a spare for George Branham, who leads by 29. We'll be back. AC-Delco Classic. Man bowled his 4th strike in a row, hitting his last in the 7th frame. Now he's in the left lane, 8th frame. Mike Aulby. 5 in a row. Cutting that lead now to 9 pins. What a match in our second game.
Aulby used to use a 15-pound bowling ball, and he thought he could conquer the tour with that weight ball instead of the maximum 16. He would have never carried a strike like that with a 15-pound ball. That closes the match down. He has put the pressure on, it seems, a person who is imperceptible to pressure. George Branham III has every ball solid in the pocket. 6 strikes, 1 spare. Just a 9-pin difference in the match. 3 frames left.
After the spare breaking his string at 6, it's a strike in the 8th for George Branham III. Patty Cummings, George's fiance. Mighty tense. Winner here today will receive $27,000.
Both these players are products of the junior program across the country. Mike Aulby from the Indiana area, George Branham from California. Both head-to-head. Very tough match. It's up for grabs.
Tough. So, Mike Aulby.
Branham hits lights, saws the 5 into the 7 pin, and just slices that 6 pin out as it takes the 10. Watch his eyes as he reacts.
The 2 men remaining in our championship finals here. The tournament leader, Steve Wunderlich, and the next man to bowl, Norman Duke of Fort Worth. They got up off the set tees and started practicing a little harder after seeing this game. Head-to-head, 1 against 1. Beauty of our format.
Aulby in a very crucial spot. Needs 1 more strike.
9 years, 13 championships, including 2 PBA Nationals, Player of the Year. Some of the reasons why. He has amassed a tremendous record in that short a period of time.
Chris, this is the highest scoring best match I can recall since 1975-76 in St. Louis when Larry Lobb and Tim Harahan went at it 280 to 270. Lobb winning that match. Right now, Branham has a possible 279, Aulby a possible 270. The match is up for grabs, 10th frame.
We've seen 15 strikes thus far in this game. Make it 16. And now Mike Aulby has taken the lead by 1 pin.
The Hoosier, a 40-pin deficit as he entered the 5th frame, has closed that margin down to where he has a 1-pin lead. He drives the head pin to the sideboard. Now he can take an 11-pin lead, but he cannot shut out George Branham. There is a strong possibility of a tie match also.
And should that happen, it'll be a 2-frame roll-off. Well, 3-5-6 on the left lane for the left-hander.
Aulby, the 3-5-6 with a spare conversion would end up with 257. What that would force George Branham to do is get a count of at least 19. That would be 9 on the first ball, spare a strike, or a strike on the first ball to win the match. If Branham would get a combination of 18, after Aulby would convert this spare, we would have a tie.
.257 for Mike Aulby. Now, Branham, who won the first match over Jimmy Certain, 217 to 199, strung 6, marked with a spare, and a strike in 8-9, now shooting in the 10th frame.
This is the ultimate athletic moment for a professional bowler. He must perform right now. The game is in the balance.
What a competitor. George Branham with this strike.
Life in the fast lane of the Professional Bowlers Tour. George Branham every ball right in the pocket. He started with 6 strikes in a row, solid 10-pin in the 7th frame, and very coolly stood up there in the 8th, 9th, and when it really counted, buried the ball in the 10th to put Mike Aulby down into 4th position, and he will go right now against Norm Duke.
And the 7-pin on the right lane, shooting a 268 and winning his second game. 268 to 257. Hope you enjoyed that match. Norm Duke is Branham's next opponent. He is from Fort Worth, Texas, and tough. Norman Duke, George Branham next on the Professional Bowlers Tour telecast. Back again in California, our second stop in a tour of 16 cities, 26th year of the Professional Bowlers Tour. A tremendous match, second best in the history of our PBT telecasts. George Branham III, second win today, 268 to Mike Aulby's 257.
And as we see the size of the field, it is incorrect there. It should be 160-man field. The average score, of course, 201 to cash for everybody, 208 to make the top 24. And here's some of the other players that cashed in our championship field. As you see, the Bay Bridge below you. Left-hander Staybrook, Dave Arnold, 300 games. Scott Devers, Ron Williams from the St. Louis area, Coke, Illinois. Purvis Granger, Bill Ryan Jr., 2 weeks in a row. Chuck McGavro looking good. Veteran Dave Davis, Dave Ferraro, a new champion there. Mark Williams, who won the last tournament last year. John Mazza says hi to his mom. Gary Dickinson, veteran. Hutchinson up there. Lefty Hugh Miller. Del Warren, Tom Baker. Dale Eagle says hi to his daughters Shauna and Tamara and his son Brandon. Toby Contreras, a former AC-Delco champion. And Doug Wallace round out the top 24. We paid 53 places this week. $940 went to the final spot, the Great Palmer Fallgren.
All right, and next week we move to Las Vegas, Nevada for the $175,000 Showboat Invitational. Gary Skidmore will defend his title against United States Open champion Del Ballard, Mark Roth, and a host of others, Nelson Burton Jr., Earl Anthony, who finished 39th here in this tournament this week. And here's the man that finished second. Tough little competitor at 5'5", 125 pounds, Norm Duke.
These last 3 players left, Duke, Branham, and Wunderlich, are bowling as well as I've seen any young players in recent years, Chris.
Imagine that. He won his first tournament at 18 years of age. He's now 22. Looking for his 3rd title. Branham has won 2 matches looking for his 2nd title. Look at his average today, 242.5.
Interesting to see if he could sustain that pace. He's just been phenomenal. Every ball but one in the pocket in the first 2 games.
10-pin on the right lane. He had 6 strikes in his 217 victory over Jimmy Certain at 199. 9 strikes against Mike Aulby, 268, 257. Aulby had 8 strikes.
And Branham III, 68% pocket percentage for first 2 games, 15 strikes and 22 attempts. Starts off with a 10-pin.
And the winner of this, our next to last match, will meet the tournament leader, Steve Wunderlich of St. Louis, Missouri. Young man with a lot of talent.
Interesting story on our tournament leader also, Chris. He had his bowling ball stolen last night from the bowling center. He will be going with a backup ball that he just found, so it'll be interesting to see how he handles that championship match against one of these 2 players in the semifinal. Who wins the semifinal?
And now it's a 7-pin on the left lane.
Branham just slightly light in the pocket in his first 2 shots here in the semifinal match. The ball drives the head pin to the sideboard. It takes out the 2, 4, and 5, but leaves the 7-pin. And in these lane conditions here today, you have to watch for the lanes sometimes getting a little slicker, or tightening up as we call it, as some of the lane conditioner is carried down towards the pocket area. George just needs to reduce his speed slightly.
George Branham, who defeated Aulby 268 to 257. We indicated that was his 2nd best score on the PBT Tour. Mark Baker had a 279 and Dave Ferraro a 278 in the 1985 Austin Open.
This young man has gone into a terrific training program for this season.
2.45.8 for Norm Duke. Throughout this tournament, he was never less than second.
Duke, short of stature but strong on power, gets a demonstrative push away, the high backswing similar to what we saw Pete Weber use last week. Low at the line, has tremendous wrist action, just throws that ball a little too hard. We use the 2, 4, 5, and 8. The conversion here, he would lead this match by 1 pin.
Duke of Fort Worth could today become the 3rd Texan to win the last 3 tournaments. Mark Williams of Beaumont winning the last of the 1986 tour. Last week, Del Ballard. And now Norm.
Norm, the training program he told me he was on all the way through December and on into the start of January was simply this. He got up in the morning, ran 5 miles every day, went to the bowling center, practiced approximately 3 hours, then went to the gymnasium 3 days a week, worked out on the Nautilus machines. He is ready.
4-7 on the left lane. And he said, Bo, what he wanted to do is build up more leg strength than upper body. He's got a pretty good upper body for a small person.
Yes, he does, but the leg strength, as you alluded to, Chris, is the most important in bowling. As you see a slightly high hit by Norm Duke, driving the 2 pin over the 4 and 7 pins. He'll go across lane, approximately the 3rd arrow for a target, drive the 4 into the 7 or let the ball take out both pins. But the leg strength is more important in bowling than the arm strength.
All right. Spare in the 3rd, 1 pin separating these 2 professionals. And our tournament leader, Steve Wunderlich, warming up off to the right. That strike coming after 2 spares.
An ideal arm swing. He takes that ball inside, brings it slightly outside his target line. Now watch how he wraps it back in behind his hips, drives right down next to that left leg, keeps that elbow and wrist underneath the ball. And what he did on that shot was just snap that wrist a little bit more to make the ball finish, driving all 10 pins in the pit. Great adjustment. He leads the match by 1 through 3 frames.
That angle, a great picture and audio tip for all you bowlers at home. So George Branham, in his 3rd match of the afternoon, has doubled. The AC-Delco Classic will continue after this. 5th frame. High hit, and it's the 6, 7, 10. We bowled through, and while we were away, he marked with a strike in the 4th frame. Now this hit in the 5th.
Norm Duke cuts right through the middle of the pins, and if he can slide that 6 pin over into the 7 pin area, he can convert the split. Has to stand the extreme left side of the approach, send the 6 pin straight over into the 7, and he would hold the deficit down to just 11 pins.
Cross lane shot. Didn't quite pull it off, so it's a 23-pin lead for George Branham, who has a double up. Shooting down the 5th frame.
Branham has just been near perfect so far if you're just tuning in. He just bowled so sensational his first 2 matches. Now has Duke on the ropes in the early going, can extend his lead to 33 pins, 5th frame.
Remember, 6 strikes in his first victory, 9 in his second. Now he has strung 3 here in his 3rd game of the afternoon.
In this tournament, Chris, in the qualifying, I had the good fortune of bowling next to George all the way through the 18 games, and he bowled the very same way. He just didn't quite have the carry in the early going of the tournament. He was just very diligent about keeping his form together, concentrating, keeping the ball around the pocket, and he has just carried it right into this championship match. He leads by 33.
And add 10 more for Branham. Here you see the leaders by round, qualifying rounds and then match play.
Qualifying rounds, each of 6 games, 18 games. A match play consisting of 24 games. Aulby, then Wunderlich caught him in the 5th and 6th rounds. 42-game total for this week. But now it's just down to 3 players, 2 games left. Duke trails by 43 pins coming up in the 6th.
Norm Duke from Texas. A lot of great golfers from that state. We asked him why there's so many good bowlers from Texas.
It's an awful big state. I would have to credit most of the success to the tournament activity they have in Texas. A player has a chance to win anywhere from $1,000 to $5,000 a weekend, most every weekend. So therefore, they get a lot of experience bowling for the Bucks, and a lot of good players are coming from Texas.
I think it's a point well taken. What he meant is there's a lot of handicap tournaments and scratch tournaments organized on a local level, and all the Texas players participate in it. That's the way to stay sharp, always with that ball in your hand.
Wanted to cut it to 33, but left a 10 pin.
Norm did not need that shot right there. He threw apparently a great roll on the ball, left a solid 10 at an inopportune time as he switches to a little bit harder ball to slide it into the 10 pin. But with a conversion through 7 frames, he'll trail the very red-hot George Branham by 43 pins.
All right, the AC-Delco Classic, our 6th. We'll be back. More strikes while we were away to put his string to 6 here in his 3rd match. Here is his last shot.
He just gives his opponent no chance, puts the pressure on Norm Duke here, 8th frame to extend to 6 strikes in a row. A possible 279 for Branham in this game. The best Duke can do is 216. And that figure has just dropped to 203. Norm Duke struggling a little bit, but it's really not his fault. Branham has just been near perfect so far in 3 matches.
For the loser of this 3rd game, $8,500. The winner will go into the final as they bowl for $41,000, 27 to the winner, $14,000 to the loser. The defending champion, Randy Peterson, finished 72nd in this year's AC-Delco Classic.
Duke just finishing out the match has bowled so well all week long. You're going to see a lot more of this young man. He's been on an excellent training program. He's finally come into his own. He has the experience, the determination, and he's going to win a lot of tournaments.
And that stroke is just about as smooth as they come. What a delivery by Norm Duke. And what an afternoon for George Branham, leading by 66.
Branham, who was seated in the 1st match, has a chance to go all the way through the field, much like Randy Peterson did here in the AC-Delco Classic last year, defeating Dennis Jakes in the championship match. Potential 279. He has 6 strikes in a row.
Unreal. Now leading by 76 and is the winner. The Professional Bowlers Tour will continue after this message and a word from our local stations. With games of 217, 268, and now one even better, 279, George Branham III, a one-time winner, has eliminated Norm Duke, who shot 225 strikes in the 3 games. He will now meet Steve Wunderlich. All right, let's see about Ask Bo. This is the way to find out anything you want to know about bowling. Send your card or letter to Ask Bo, Post Office Box 951, Radio City Station, New York, New York, 10019. And now Bo is going to ask a question. Bo?
Thank you, Chris. And with me is the anxious wife of our tournament leader, Steve Wunderlich. Cindy, what is going through your mind as Steve goes up against red-hot George Branham?
Well, I know George is bowling really well, but I think Steve's really hungry for this title. He'd like to be back in the Firestone again. I'd like him to be back in the Firestone again. He had some rough television shows during the fall tour, and I think he's going to win. This is his show.
Well, it's a good positive attitude. As Cindy alluded to, he lost a very tough match in Rochester to Tommy Baker. He threw every ball in the pocket. Baker got somewhat of a lucky strike in the 10th frame. How about the money? Does that make any difference?
Oh, the money helps. We found out about some financial obligations this week, so any paycheck this week is going to help. So I'm really excited, and I've got a really positive attitude, and I hope Steve does too.
Well, I think Cindy, and I know Steve very well, and this young lady, that for Steve Wunderlich, $27,000, that's fine, and for Cindy Wunderlich. But I think knowing this young man, how good he is bowling, he's bowling as well as anybody in the country right now, I think the victory itself is actually more important than money.
I think that's the case this time. I really would like to see him win, and go for it.
All right, Cindy, good luck. Good luck to Steve Wunderlich. George Branham's a tough opponent. Chris, they're ready to go.
All right. What an afternoon for George Branham III. 3 victories. And he's been slaughtering those 10 pins. His opponent is the tournament leader from St. Louis, Steve Wunderlich. Another practice shot for Wunderlich.
Wunderlich, the tournament leader, has allowed 10 practice balls before the championship match, and there was not a good omen on that shot. He crossed over the left side of the head pin, and really, I don't see where he can have any room for error against Branham as well as he's bowling. For Wunderlich, he has one thing going for him, and that's he has probably a slightly negative attitude. Everything has gone bad for him. He's due to have something go good for him in a championship round. Here's the first shot for our tournament leader.
Last year reaching the championship round 4 times without winning. Just needed a break there. Pin coming over to get the 10, but it did not.
Watch the action in the head pin. It'll go to the sideboard over the left side. Now watch it as it bounces back across the lane as what we call a messenger shot. Doesn't quite have enough impetus to knock out the 10 pin, but a good opening shot for Wunderlich. Keep the ball in play. Matches are not won in the first few frames. They're won in the 9th and 10th frames.
So it's despair for the tournament leader, Wunderlich. Norm Duke, who was defeated by this man, George Branham, 279 to 200, picked up a check for $8,500. There you see his performance today.
Branham averaging .254 for this first 3 games coming into the championship match.
Precision. Perfection. Frame number 1 for George Branham.
Well, I said there's a new breed on the tour. Look at the discipline of this young man, the obvious physical conditioning to maintain this pace, and the concentration. Shows tremendous experience at such a tender age of 24.
With that strike, he has strung 12 in 2 games, of course.
12 consecutive strikes. He finished his 3rd game with 10 in a row. He started this match with 2 in a row. The old-timers would have called that an Andy Verapapa 300. There's an old saying that Andy had 300 games, and everybody used to chide him about counting all of just 12 strikes in a row and not all in one game.
And if ever Steve needed one, it was right there. Strike in the 2nd frame.
Here's a man who is a great athlete in all sports, but has really found his niche in professional bowling, and he has worked at it. Look at that profile. Every step calculated. Terrific follow through. Look at the snap and revolutions his wrist is giving that bowling ball as he drives all 10 pins in a pit.
Oh, and what a student of bass fishing. Smallmouth and largemouth. In fact, he told me our river back home, the Tippecanoe, which runs through the farm. Oh, that's a great area for smallmouth bass. He lives in Missouri. Oh, no.
A little bit discouraged with that shot, but matches are not won early in the match. What has happened to Wunderlich, he sent the ball wide. It broke very sharply through the pocket. What he has to do is just take either this side of the pins, the 6-10 area, or the 4-7, and try to just bounce the pins back out and convert this split. He must go for it in a championship game. Not to be.
Steve seemed in a big hurry for that one, but can he come back? Branham opened with a double. Third frame. .27 strikes today.
George Branham III, not the first black bowler to jump into the spotlight on the Professional Bowlers Tour. The late J. Wilbur Sims from Chicago performed before national television audiences on ABC in the 60s, and probably the toughest black bowler that I had ever bowled, one of the great match play players of all times, the late B.J. Harris from St. Louis. Chris, so George is just carrying on a tremendous tradition.
George, who backs himself on the tour, winner of regional titles, one PBA title, now shooting for his second. We'll be back. Lady Cindy Wunderlich, her husband Steve, up in the approach now, and up against George Branham III, who has strung 4. After an open, 4th frame for Steve. High hit, 610.
Steve just not getting the ball reaction that he wants. And Chris, he was the tournament leader going away last night. And when we walked in the bowling center today, he found that 4 of his bowling balls were stolen during the evening. One of them was the one he used to lead the tournament. They were never found. He's had to pick up a reserve ball, and it is definitely not very confident in his hand.
Covering the 610. And, Bo, that has to be a marginal thought, there's no question. Well, earlier we asked Steve what's the change that he had made, the way he drills the balls that were stolen.
Well, in order to come up with a more comfortable grip, I've moved the thumb hole in relation to the finger holes. I've moved it 1 inch offset, and it allows the ball to set in the palm of my hand more and to impart lift easier than I have in the past.
And that's an innovation of his mentor and tutor, Billy Walden from Troy, Missouri, one of the PBA senior champions.
Only his second strike now in 5 frames. George Branham. Here's the shot of Wunderlich.
Wunderlich just solid in the pocket, driving all 10 pins straight back. But he has to watch the machine himself. George Branham up there has 14 consecutive strikes here in the championship round, leads by 44 pins. 5th frame.
There it is, 5 in a row. And Bo, I know that General Chuck Yeager appreciates this precision because of all the dogfights he was in P-51s and in European campaign and then the Southeast Asia and F-4s. Came back alive. He had to have a lot of precision too. He's watching along with the capacity crowd and all of you. Now the 6th frame, Branham. A 4-pin for Branham on the left lane, that coming in the 6th. His parents, are they happy? Betty and George Branham, the 2nd. You see them there.
As you see Branham's ball hitting right in the pocket, the head pin goes to the sideboard, not taking out the 4 and 8 pins. The 2 pin falls straight back, takes out the 8, leaves an easy spare.
So George Branham with 30 strikes thus far, and he is in the championship match against the tournament leader. He's 1-3 by scores of 217, 268, 279.
For Wunderlich, the time is now. Early in the match, he must start striking. 6th frame.
Four, 6, 9, 10.
As you see Wunderlich having trouble with the ball breaking, just too early as it travels down the lane and too sharply, he leaves the 3, 6, 9, 10, a difficult spare, but unfortunately he needed a strike there to really close down this match to make it close. He's had a very difficult spare. almost a wry smile on his face. An ill-fated day so far. He needs something really good to happen to win this match. And that's not it.
No. Wife, Sunday.
Cindy's so disappointed as you see Wunderlich's ball sliding by the difficult 3-6, 9-10 spare, has dug himself a hole or a deficit of 65 pins through 6 frames. Just cannot control that ball reaction on the lane surface today. Get up there. And Chris, I must expound for a second, not to take away from George Branham's great performance so far today, is it just what makes a person so unlucky to have his bowling ball stolen like that, or what allows a person the opportunity or the legitimacy to steal somebody's equipment that means so much to his livelihood. It's such a shame.
So it's a 7-pin for George Branham III of Arletto, California. You know, in 1984, we recall an afternoon in St. Louis when one Nelson Burton Jr. shot 1050. Well, I'll tell you, Bo.
Well, 1050 for 4 games. George Branham III had a chance to break that record, Chris, if he could have come up with a 287 this game. Right now, he has still a potential 268.
He has just outdistanced his opponents except for Mike Aulby. Aulby by 11 pins. 18 pins, Jimmy Certain. 79 over Norm Duke. Big games, now leading by 64.
The parents, the proud smile of the mother in the background. Cindy Wunderlich, definitely disappointed, sitting there with the checkered dress on.
The 31st strike of the afternoon.
The methodical George Branham III becomes animated as victory is within his grasp.
Three-pin for Steve Wunderlich. Now we're just really going through the motions. It's a long afternoon for this young man, the tournament leader.
Quickly up on the approach, shooting the 3-pin. The best Steve can get out of this match would be a 194. Chris, I know this fella. He's a very emotional young man. You can almost see the emotion on his face. And when you live really or train the Spartan life that he has to become a great professional bowler that he is, this day will return tenfold in his favor. You watch. Mark my words. This man will win a lot of tournaments this year.
Just one of the many professionals, Bo, that I've noticed at 25 years now and the 26th, they have such immense pride in how they perform, how they show their skills to the television audience, and all week long in the bowling centers wherever we go for these championships.
Agreed, Chris. And I think it's just as hard on his wife. Really, Cindy is probably wants to win even more than Steve. It's a helpless feeling sitting there watching your husband.
Well, it's like the old theme of the show that follows us, Wide World of Sports. Joy of victory and the agony. You can underline that. Several lines of defeat.
You're right. And following us on Wide World of Sports will be the triathlon, as producer Amy Sachs has received many accolades so far for that production.
Well, the 2 and the sleeper 8.
That's the first time he's missed the pocket, Chris, since the first game where he left the 2, 4, and 5 pins. The 2-8, he's going through the motions right now with a conversion here and a couple more strikes. He could be in the 240s, but it's really academic at this point. He is the champion.
And that means he adds to his 1986 Brunswick Memorial World Open, getting his first PBA Tour title here in Union City, California. $27,000 for George Branham. Well, other than a perfect 300 game, George, I'd say you had a perfect afternoon.
Yeah, this is great. I'd like to thank AC-Delco for sponsoring the tournament. I can't believe this 2 times.
How do you suppose those opponents felt?
I don't know.
Oh, yeah, you do. Let's find out from our tournament leader, Steve Wunderlich. Bo?
Thank you, Chris. With me is not only the man who led the tournament, finished second, a good friend, Steve. It had to be an omen, an ill-fated day when you walked in and their bowling balls were all gone.
Well, you know, I used one ball every morning of the tournament, and when I walked in this morning, 2 of my bowling bags were stolen, and that was one of them. And you're right, that didn't start the day off very well, but can't use that as an excuse. I had other equipment, and I struck a lot in practice, and the heads broke down while I was, from the time I got done practicing till when I got over here, and I didn't make the proper adjustments, and George bowled great all day. He deserves it.
A true champion sitting next to me. He treated it just like that, Chris. You'll see him many more times in the winner's circle.
That's right. I'd like to introduce this lineup here. First, Patty Cummings, George's fiancée, Mr. and Mrs. Branham II, parents of this champion, and of course, General Chuck Yeager, P-51 fame, I call it. Kid from Hamlin, West Virginia. And we have Art Schwarzel, who's the general sales manager of AC-Delco, our hosts here. This is a magnificent AC-Delco trophy. It's got a lot of quality, George.
Yeah.
But I think you might like to see that piece of paper there. I have a feeling. Art?
George, congratulations. And on behalf of General Motors and Service Parts Operations and all our AC-Delco wholesalers and retailers nationwide, we certainly congratulate you, offer you this fine trophy, and especially this check for $27,000. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
All right, a quick comment here, George. You're winning your second title.
Well, I can use the 27,000, that's for sure.
You have to share it with anybody.
I share it with my whole family. This is great.
What are your plans now? Las Vegas next week?
I'm gonna bowl Las Vegas. And probably in the summer I'm gonna get married. I don't know yet.
We know one thing, you had a great afternoon. 247 average, congratulations. Thank you, AC-Delco. Chuck, Art, Mom and Dad, girlfriend. Okay. The Professional Bowlers Tour was produced by Peter Lasser, directed by Larry Cam, technical director Gary Larkins, associate director David Keviet. Now this is Chris Schenkel along with Nelson Burton Jr. saying so long from Union City, California. Coming up next on ABC's Wide World of Sports, experience what it feels like to swim, bike, and run over 140 miles in the same day. The Ironman Triathlon World Championship will be featured in a breakthrough television presentation as this grueling endurance event includes the viewer through the micro camera technology. It's all coming up next on ABC's